These are, if you already have one, don't take it, Seven Springs Farm Supply. I talked to them yesterday. The thing I'm going to recommend highly is spring barley. And what's great about spring barley is it viably winter kills at 17 degrees, which is one of the warmest things I know of. I mean, like oats go down to 13. And Ron hasn't been carrying it because of weevils, but I've convinced him to freeze the grain when he gets it so he can carry it. So if you're going to get spring barley, you want to get it from Seven Springs Farm Supply. The catalog is available here.
If you're in this region, he delivers about every quarter, maybe even more often. There's deliveries in Marshall and in Asheville and a few other places. So you want to get on his email list, and he'll inform you about deliveries to your area. It's cheaper that way.
How long does it have to be exposed to 17 degrees? Does it repeat it and over an extended?
Not in my experience. I mean, I didn't realize that happened, and I went away on a Friday and came back on a Monday at a place I worked, and it was all very dead. So I think a good solid night will probably do it. Okay, that's the one I'm short on. Leave me one so I can make copies. And then there's the outline. 17 degrees. Spring bar. We'll talk about it.
Okay.
It's part of one of the unusual things about cover crops, how to use it. It's got a lot of stuff on it. Well, we may or may not have pictures. My flash drive may be showing you too. So, I probably need the microphone, right? You all can hear me?
Microphone worked better yesterday.
Microphone was better yesterday?
Yeah, I thought so. I was in the back. It was a lot clearer.
Okay. All right. Can you hear me? Okay, good. All right, great. Okay. I'm really sorry, folks.
Thank you for coming.
I don't have enough time for these talks anyway, but we'll get it covered. Okay. At the top is the list of resources. And yesterday, as I was giving this talk, I realized I left two resources off. One is a great book that's available for free download from Sayre, and that is Managing Cover Crops Profitably. Now, I have to warn you that a lot of what I talk today won't be there. This book was written back in the 90s, and so we've just gotten more adventurous with our cover crops in the last 20 years or so. So it's a great basis to start with. And I have a quick question. How many people in this room have grown cover crops before? Way better. Sunday's a better day for this. Okay. And how many people have grown other than for winter, let's say rye, barley, wheat, crimson clover, Austrian peas, hairy vetch? Excellent, excellent. Okay. Because we're not going to spend tons of time on those. We'll go over them briefly since apparently some people haven't touched on them, but that's not the focus. This is the focus of this session is on ones that aren't usually grown and different ways to use the cover crops. Okay. Resources first. Growing for Market newsletter. If you don't know that, you want to know it. Even if you're just a gardener, you'll have to live with the fact that you're wasting the money that you get on the marketing part. But all the rest is incredibly cutting edge. It's edited by a farmer, and she knows how to pick the information that's really pertinent, and she knows how to edit it, so it's very, very useful. I highly recommend, if you haven't had it before, that you consider the, I think it's $99 a year version if you need a paper copy. If you don't need a paper copy, it's $89. But for that, you get a searchable archive that goes back to 2000. That, I can tell you, is an amazing resource.
What was the resource again? Sorry.
It's the first resource on the top of the handout, Growing for Market newsletter.
Okay, thank you.
Highly recommended. I just got it. Late breaking news. make it to the Southern Sustainable the Carolina Farm Stewardship Sustainable Agriculture Conference, because Lynn Brzezinski and her husband, who's a force to be reckoned with in his own right, are going to be presenting there. She's the editor and founder of Growing for Market newsletter. Okay, of course, Acres USA, Mother Earth News, Back Home Magazine, Organic Gardening are all great resources. I mean, in any given year, it'd be a surprise to me if there wouldn't be one educational, to me, and I have spent a lot of time looking at this stuff, article in each of those magazines. So I highly recommend them too. LivingWebFarms.org, that is our website for the organization I work for, Living Web Farms. And we have loads of educational videos on the website. They're not edited, you get them just like we did them, but they're there. And we all have, in particular, pertinent to this class, Mark Schoenbeck, Dr. Mark Schoenbeck, who is an amazing wealth of knowledge on cover crops. 4 or 5 hours of him presenting, and the good news for you is you can take it in small bites. You know, come to the session, you just go through it, but then you get to ask your questions too. So I highly recommend our website, ATRA. If you don't know ATRA, you are missing out. It is one of the best things the government does. I highly recommend it. And then Carolina Farm Stewardship Association. I note that I actually had a link to the 2010 Sustainable Ag Conference, but it'll still get you to them. And if you want to see an organic, sustainable agenda forward in the Carolinas, they're an organization to support totally, and they're a huge resource for information also. You can get on their listservs and just be aware of all kinds of stuff that's going on in your region. And then finally, if you cannot, that's actually not finally, close to finally, if you cannot find something locally, you almost certainly can find it at www.groworganic.com. That's the Peaceful Valley Farm Supply Catalog. You can shop for them online. Indeed, yesterday somebody asked me if there was a book about a lot of these unusual cover crops, and I said no, not really one that's updated. You know, the Managing Cover Crops Profitably is great from the past, but it's not updated. And afterwards I thought, that catalog. Years ago I took a class with Chip Hope, and he used that catalog for a textbook. The descriptions of the cover crops are detailed enough that you can learn a lot just by getting that catalog and reading the catalog. Part of why I can give this talk.
What was the name of that again?
The name of the catalog is Peaceful Valley Farm Supply. The website is www.groworganic.com, and it is on your handout. Yeah. Okay, and finally, Seven Springs Farm Supply. Well, still not finally, almost finally. Seven Springs Farm Supply, you just got their catalog. Ron, the great thing about shopping locally is you get to talk to the supplier. And I just went up to them yesterday and said, please carry spring barley again. Because I got it from you in the first place, learned by accident how wonderfully it winter killed, and now it's hard to get it. He said, the reason I don't carry it is because of weevils. It's real prone to weevils. I said, can't you freeze it? He said, I just got a big freezer, I can, I'll get it. So you can do that kind of thing with a local supplier, so that's why it's always best to keep those local connections. And then finally, Kaufman Seeds. Kaufman Seeds, I have flyers and price sheets from them for people that are serious about buying from them, but they're supplying farmers. They don't want to talk to somebody that needs 3 pounds of seed. They might be willing to talk about 10 pounds of seed for a premium price, but what they're used to selling is 25 pounds to 50 pounds to thousands of pounds. But they're really knowledgeable, and they will actually, if you're looking to buy even 50 pounds, like I need one of those cover crops we're going to talk about, Lab, 50 pounds, I was willing to buy it. They spent a couple of weeks and found it on the West Coast for me. So it's a great resource that way, yes?
If you're like a school or doing something like, really good, sometimes they'll donate it or sell it to you at a lesser price or, lesser amount too.
Yeah, it's worth a try.
Yeah.
They're good to talk to. The other thing I love is that they get inoculants, and you can say, I need inoculant for that cover crop, and they know what it is. And that, for people who got the handout that I didn't have enough of, what's great about that handout, why I printed it, is because it tells you what inoculants you need too. So we can go together, anybody that wants to, after the class, to the copy center and make copies of that. Also, we'll get it posted online on our website.
Yeah, we can do that.
At School too, so it'll be taken care of. Okay, all right. So the standard winter cover crops, and actually, can you pull up unusual and workhorse cover crops towards the bottom? Okay. The standard cover crops that people grow in the wintertime are the ones I just mentioned. Okay? And they're great cover crops. Actually, rye and vetch, it says in managing cover crops profitably, and it's true, are the best ones for building the soil in our climate. They're not so good if you want to get in the ground early. And that's why we're going to talk about things like spring barley that will winter kill. They're just too vigorous. That's why they build the soil so well. Other ones that you standard grow in the wintertime, I mean, that usually people can get, you can buy seed locally. Things like winter wheat, barley, oats. Oats are touted as being able to winter kill. Years ago, Greg Hoyt, when he was working at the research station, said to me, they winter kill when you don't want them to, and they don't winter kill when you want them to. And I literally finally had that exact experience. I never needed them to winter kill, and they would winter kill erratically on me. And then I grew them as a forage crop for my chickens one winter. That was 2009. I remember that winter, but they died. So that's. But whereas the spring barley, which we'll get to in a minute, reliably dies at 17, which is a more common temperature around here. Okay, ryegrass is also one that people grow for the winter, and years ago, Alex Hitt said to me in a session he was teaching, he said, Pat, do you still grow that? I don't know anybody that grows it because it's so prone to go to seed before you realize it and become quite a weed.
What was it?
Winter ryegrass. And that's, be aware, when you go, if you don't know your cover crops, when you go to buy them, and you say, I want winter rye, look at it, make sure they didn't give you grass. Because there's winter rye grass, annual, winter rye grass perennial, and winter rye grain. And the one you want, if you're trying to grow for vegetables production, probably is winter rye grain. Though I can give you an argument for any of them in certain situations, yes.
Can you tell them like the seed size?
Yeah, totally. The one looks like grain, the other looks like grass. Pay attention. I've had people, even after I tell them, load my truck with several bags of the wrong one and had to go back and get it again, yeah.
So is winter rye just another option, but you apparently prefer spring barley because of
Well, no, every situation is different.
Okay.
I have a friend who's got a great quote I love, comparisons are odious. It's not about is one better than the other, it's about which one is right for the situation.
What's the difference? Which one's more right for what situation?
Very hard to kill winter rye.
Yeah.
Spring barley goes down at 17 degrees. You don't even have to try and kill it.
So maybe if you want to actually grow rye, then you don't want it to die, that's your crop.
Or you're not needing to get in there until May.
Okay.
Once the rye goes to seed, every cover crop, that's how, and hopefully I'm going to fit that in, every cover crop will die once it's going to seed. Because it's putting all of its energy in making seed. It has no more need to stay alive. It's an annual. Once it's making seed, it goes down. So once it starts to shoot up, you can roll it or mow it. And if it's hot out, now if it's cold, it might say, ooh, second shot, I'll try and make more seed. But if it's hot out, which is when these things go to seed, they die. So you might very well want to grow rye vetch and roll it or mow it in early May. When it's going to seed, it'll kill and give you a nice thick, classically that's done for tomatoes. There was a whole little boomlet by one researcher about growing vetch and planting tomatoes through it back in the 90s. So yeah, there's reasons to grow these. We're just going to talk about some other reasons to grow other ones.
Gotcha.
Okay, so standard winter cover crop legumes, hairy vetch, Austrian winter pea, crimson clover. What to know about them? Hairy vetch gives you the least mass if you're trying to kill it and let it lay on top. It's hard to kill until it gets hot. If you let it go to seed, you will see those things come up for years and years because it makes what's called hard seed that does not germinate the first year. It can germinate over the next 10 to 50 years. I'm not sure quite how many, but the other thing to know is do not grow hairy vetch if you intend to let your chickens in there and forage on them when it's going to seed. It's poisonous to them and it's addictive. So you do not want them to get into the hairy vetch seed. It will make them sick. Okay? The thing I love about crimson clover is it reliably self-seeds. You can let that go to seed if you're in no hurry to get into that section, and come August, it'll be popping up again. That could be a disadvantage if you want to grow carrots where that stuff is coming up in August. But if you wanted to cover crop again after, let's say, an early tomato crop or squash crop or something like that, it's pretty wonderful that way. It also, if you have never seen it, we'll actually take a look at it right now. If I can find the mouse. Okay, so I love cover crops because solar energy in plants is one of the best things on the team. It gives us tons of resources. One of my favorite quotes is from Dr. Elaine Ingham. I learned it in 1997, and I managed to fit it in almost every talk I give on every subject. And that is that plants put 50 to 80% of what they photosynthesize below the soil. 30 to 50% of that they exude out of their roots into the soil to feed their microbial communities. So the axiom of organic growers is to feed the soil, not the plant, and the plant is feeding the soil also. It gets that it's in community. When you grow cover crops, you are getting way ahead of the game. You're getting tons. It's not just, we all think, oh, this much dry matter, this much nitrogen. No, this much nurturing all the time, this much enlivening your soil all the time. Your soil just gets better and better as those plants are growing. It's the argument that. That's just to give you an idea of how thick rye can be, and it was a shot I had of really close-up of rye. The chart is totally inconsequential to this talk. This is to show you Sudex. People know Sudex, a cross between Sudan grass and sorghum. Probably the greatest biomass producer of a grain that I know of. Incredibly productive. You can grow that up as tall as it is right there, cut it down, and by the end of the season, if it's not going to freeze for another month or so, it'll be as tall again. And when you cut it, it makes the roots go way deeper and pull up more minerals. Don't try and kill it without major mechanical disturbance until frost. It's very vigorous, it reshoots and reshoots. It makes a very high quality hay, great nitrogen scavenger, has allelopathic effects. Even I've heard from Dr. Ron Morris, who's one of my heroes and has done loads of research on cover crops, even on transplants, he says, which is pretty scary. Usually allelopathic effects, that's when the plant, like a walnut, doesn't let a seed germinate. Usually with cover crops, the allelopathic effects are just on seed germination. But Sudan grass could actually impact other ways. Yes?
For how long? How long do you have to wait to plant it?
Usually if your soil is good and active for something like this, though this is what I know from experience with other crops. Haven't really run into this with the sorghum. Usually it's a few weeks. If it's warm and sunny and rainy, because that stuff is getting eaten,
Is it dangerous to plant in a hoop house where it's not going to be exposed to frost?
No, it's going to be exposed to frost eventually anyways. It'll just take a little longer, unless you're heating your hoop house. Yeah, no, it's a total wimp about cold. It is kick butt otherwise, but it can't take any cold at all. Sorghum and Sudan grass, you can get an idea of where it comes from. Okay, the reason I wanted to get that picture in is look at the biomass you have there. It's the wrong time of year, but if it were freezing right then, we could plant right into that mowed down stuff. We do that with garlic every year. We grow Sudex and cowpeas, and then let them winter kill, mow them, and plant our garlic through it. We're doing less and less tilling all the time. And crops like this are why. Okay. And there's your crimson clover. I was at the point of talking about that. If you've never seen that bloom, you can see there's plenty of reason to grow it right there. It's absolutely gorgeous. Spectacular to have that in bloom on your farm. Wonderful for the beneficial insects. If you're selling to restaurants, that is an edible blossom. Personally, I would not put a whole one in my mouth. It would be a pretty hairy experience. But if you were to tear it apart, it'd be a nice addition to salads. Okay, so those are the standard cover crops. That we're not going to look at any pictures now because I don't have any good pictures of unusual winter cover crops. But spring barley, I've already talked about it a bunch. Do people get why it's so important? If you're catching up or already on what's going to become the standard practice for sustainable growers, that wave is as little tillage as possible. And so you can literally grow something like corn or tomatoes or anything that there's bare ground underneath them. As they're finishing, you can sow them to spring barley. I mean, you don't even wait for them to come out, right? You get the spring barley in sometime in August. Not early August probably, but mid to late August. It's going to put loads of growth on before the temperature hits 17 degrees. When it hits 17 degrees, it reliably winter kills. Okay? Now, that's probably not 17 degrees of an hour on one night if global warming keeps getting worse and worse. But at the moment, we pretty reliably in the mountains hit 17 degrees everywhere. Once it hits 17 degrees, it's dead. You now have a heavily mulched bed ready to plant in the spring. That means maybe you prepared the soil to plant both corn and tomatoes, but it's another year before you even have to think about planting, about working the soil again. And you might be able to get another cover crop on that as it's dying and not have to work the soil. And as much as we don't work the soil, the better off our soil is. Every time we work the soil, we're mixing it all up, of course. The microbes, just like, you wouldn't want your apartment house or your house like taking and shaking and touring about, and it wouldn't be any fun. It's not good for the microbes. It's breaking up all the fungi that are so great. And it's incorporating tons of oxygen, which is a feeding frenzy for microbes. And all the organic matter you're putting in there is getting eaten up right away, and your crops are going to do wonderful, because all that microbe poop and dead bodies, great food for the plants. That's what they want to eat. That's how they thrive. The problem is there's nothing left. It's all been eaten up. I used to do a talk, and that little part there, the heading would be 3 steps forward, 2 3/4 back. Because you're not getting anywhere with that tilling. Okay, so that's the reason for winter barley. Spring barley. People get that? And probably you're only going to find it from Seven Springs Farm Supply now. As we grow it and talk to each other and spread the word, then it's going to become more available. Okay? All right. Also, I realize I want to go back, because although rye is probably the most common winter cover crop, there's a variety that we're just learning about that's special. And it's special in many ways, and that is Abruzzi, A-B-R-U-Z-Z-I, Wren, W-R-E-N. And that's a variety that doesn't go dormant, so when we have these mild winters like we just had, it keeps growing all winter. And probably because of that, it matures a month early. That is huge for rye, because usually you've got to wait till sometime at best in late April, sometimes as much as mid-May, before it'll go to seed and you can kill it. Now, you can kill it in early April with this one. So that's very valuable. And it's also, by the way, being used by the Bread Flour Project in Asheville as a rye to bake with.
What kind is that again?
Abruzzi Wren.
Can you spell it? I'm sorry.
A-B-R-U-Z-Z-I-W-R-E-N.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and it's 2 words. And by the way, the place I know that carries it right now is Valley Agri, V-A-L-E-Y-A-G-R-I, in Mills River. They carry it. I haven't found it easily otherwise. If you get to Seven Springs Farm Supply, ask him to stock that variety. I'm sure he can find it, and it's a very good one for us to grow.